In this video, I'm going to show you how you can master n8n just by learning 15 nodes. These are the exact same ones that we use for about 90% of the time when we're building AI automation for clients. And most likely, these are also the only one that you will ever need. If you're new here, my name is Giovanni. I'm a former senior program manager in big tech. And over the past 5 months, have helped more than 50 businesses with AI automation and generated more than $50,000 with my own AI agency. With that aside, this is your path to learning n8n without wasting time. So let's get into the video. So the first thing we're going to start with is trigger. And basically here we are just trying to understand what is the thing that starts your workflow. This is what a trigger represents. In n8n, we have multiple ways of starting the trigger. And the first one here is represented by a manual trigger that requires you to press the button in order for the workflow to start. To give you an example, this is primarily used when we are testing something. And this is because we just want to ensure that the workflow runs as per expectation before doing any automation. The second one is a schedule trigger. And if we press right here, we see that we have the possibility of scheduling something according to time intervals. And right here, we have the possibility of going and having seconds, minutes, hour, days, weeks, month, and so on. And you can customize it accordingly, so according to the time, and you have a lot of variables. Now, just to give you an understanding of this, the reason why you would want a schedule trigger, let's imagine that you are producing an automation for content creation. Maybe you are posting every day on LinkedIn at 1 p.m. And what you want to do is that you want exactly at 1 p.m. the trigger to start. So what you would do is you would go inside 1 p.m. on X amount of days, and then the workflow would start. The third type of trigger that we have, which is still native to n8n, meaning that these are triggers that belong and are inside n8n, it's the on-form submission, which basically means that we have the possibility of triggering the workflow whenever we receive an input from a form. Let's run an example. If I press in here, I can see that the form title, I put form title simply, and form description, I put this is a simple form description. Let's imagine that we want to add an element to this workflow, which basically represent whatever you want the user to input whenever they land on the form, right? In this case, let me put like name, and here I will put insert your name. And now we're going to execute the step. Whenever we do that, we are going to go in a different page that is the input page, and this is what our user would see. And if we press submit then, after putting my name, and I go back to the workflow, I can see that this node just received an input, whatever we have just submitted, right? So we have that. And my name is Giovanni, and this is the submission date with the correspondent time. Now that this is clear, I just want to tell you one more thing, which is these are what we call native, so inside n8n. However, if you press the plus right here or the tab button and you press action in app, here you have a lot more application that you can use and treat as triggers to your workflow. For example, you could schedule a trigger whenever you receive a, meeting from Calendly, if you have it right here, or maybe you're using cal.com and so on. So one takeaway is you don't only have possibility of having triggers that are native to n8n, but you also have external platforms. Moving now to storage solutions, these represent the possibilities that we have in order to store or access the data that either we produce before the workflow would start, or either that we continuously access so long as the workflow is starting. Let's make an example. You receive from the previous node a form with the input and the data from your leads, and you want to store them somewhere, right? This somewhere can either be inside the data tables, which is something that n8n introduced recently, which basically means that n8n will store this data for you inside specific table that now we're going to see, or with other things that in this case, it's a Google Sheet or it's ClickUp, it's Airtable, and you have all of those different options, right? Let's run an example. Let's take the manual trigger, position it next right here, and we're going to connect it. So this means that whenever the arrow means that the data are flowing left to right. And if I press in here, I connected it already to this table right here, which is called n8n trial. And if I enter, you will see that my table has name, surname, email, and a couple of other data. Now, if I go back to n8n, I see that I now pre-populated. My name is Giovanni, my surname is Beggiato, and this is my email. And the n8n trial is the name of the table that is inside n8n. If I'm going to now press execute, you will see that here I generated few entries, and these entries will then be, if I refresh right here the table, inside the table itself. And this means that whenever we want to access this data, we can simply go to the data tables in n8n, which is the fourth after the workflow as of the recording of the video. And if we can access, then we have everything already inside n8n. The other option that we have is to, and let me disconnect this, to go and use a Google Sheet as a storage solution. And you will see that if I go right here, my Google Sheet has full name, email, and phone number. If I go in n8n and I press right here, I will notice that the sheet is linked with an ID, which is exactly what you see right here. So this is the sheet ID that we are going to use. And then I have pre-populated my Google Sheet with few information. So my full name, my email, and then my phone number. And if now I press execute step, what I will notice is that inside the Google Sheet, once the thing is run, I will have all of the information that were in n8n. Now, why is this important? Because it doesn't really matter whatever trigger you are currently using or whatever storage solution you're currently using. The logic behind triggers and storage solution is mostly the same. And once you figure out one, then the logic applies to everything. So meaning that if I were to use now ClickUp, it would simply be a matter of substituting the node that I currently have. Let's imagine the Excel sheet. And I would simply have to map the same entry inside ClickUp. We can now move to what I call universal data processing. And in here, we have few examples that I want to touch right now. Let me grab this manual trigger and go right here. And I will now connect it to the edit fields. Edit fields are fields that we generally use when we want to map the data and we are inside the workflow, right? And we have few possibilities of doing that. Either we already have a JSON. So in this example, we just want to have a JSON that has two key value pairs. One is value and the other one is 1. And if you can see, the color is different. Or we want to manually edit the data. Let's imagine that I have a workflow and I want to insert my name at one point for whatever reason. I now can manually map, inserting the key name and then my name right here. And I can have it inside the workflow all of a sudden. So I just manipulated the data. And that's how you do it in the most simple way. Of course, you have a lot of options. So you can insert strings, number, Boolean, array, object, and so on and so forth. And for the purposes of what we want to do with this example, I also already created a array for you that now I will just position it right here with the array button. And right here, I will also move to the next node, the split out node. The split out node, and if you can see, you can understand it from the drawing that there is on the node. It means that it receives one input and then it branches it into a lot of different outputs, right? Double click here. And what I do is that the field that I want to use is now the string field. And what it will do, and I will press run, is that if you can see right here, and I go back in here, I have one input item that I can have inside this, and I cannot access each name and email and phone location individually. What does it mean? That if I'm just in this condition and I wanted for whatever reason to map these fields inside a storage system like a Google Sheet that we talked about before, in here, I'm not really able to do that because everything inside here is considered one single bunch. So in order to be able to do that, I need to split everything that I have inside here, so everything called string, into separate sub things, right? So now this is one item, in reality is one object, this is the second one, and so on and so forth. And now what I would be able to do is that I would be able to map all of these, so name, email, phone, location, one at a time, maybe with a loop, maybe with some other methods, inside our database. And that's the power of the split out. Now, the aggregate, on the other hand, does exactly the opposite. And for whatever reason, let's imagine that you want to aggregate the data. I'll give you an example. You produced one type of content on LinkedIn, and then you produced one other type of content on Instagram. And all of a sudden, you want to have them both together and upload them in one shot inside your database. Then you would use the aggregate. And you can see that it's the opposite versus the split out because even the drawing suggests that you move from a lot of inputs to one. And if I now run these two and I connect them, the thing that I'm going to have as an output is again one single item, and I can see it right here. Okay? Great. Now, we can use, and I will use it immediately, a node code to do custom things that maybe the native node do not enable us to do. And one great example is, let's imagine, and now inside my custom node, I will just connect this one with the node. So I just created this, right? And inside the custom node, I created a bunch of code, which is this one. If you were to ask me how I did it, I just did this. So do the opposite of the split out node operation with the input results, right? And it generated me this input. So if I were to do and run the code, I would get back again the same output that I got from the aggregate, because the code that generated is do the opposite of this operation right here, right? So now this is a silly example just to make you understand that with the code, you can do more things, but think about it this way. Everything that is inside, I don't know, make.com or the no-code platform is forced to be constrained only to the things that the platforms allow you to do. n8n, on the other hand, having the chance of you being able to write a little bit of code allows you to have more flexibility in how you manipulate the data. Because this means that you have the chance, in case there is no native node inside n8n, to, with the help of a little bit of code that you can use any AI or whatever to write it, to do custom operation that maybe are not, designed as such inside the platform. And you can do so many things. Let's imagine that you need to clean a huge data set or to create some rules for, I don't know, items in production, and you want to say, okay, divide the data set if this is bigger than that, or you want to give some custom rules and etc. You can do it easily with the use of a node code in JavaScript. Now, back to our example, I now will reposition this like this, and I will move one at a time, each of these here to show you what they do. Now, the if route is a node that inserts a logic inside the automation. And why is that? Because all automation are logic-based, correct? So for some things, even right here, it's coded, it's a logic. Here, insert few data inside the thing. Here, split them. Now, the if node allows you to, if the condition inside here is respected for the data that pop up from here, then go into this route right here. If it's not respected, then go into the false route right here. If I had the name of the person that comes from the previous thing is exactly, or contains, it's fine, I could say Olivia. If the name contains Olivia, then go in the true part of the branch, and if it doesn't, then go on the false. As you can see, now that we are able, as we were mentioning before, to process the data individually because we use the split node, we see that out of the 5 names that I fed to this node right here, and that's our input now right here, 1 was Olivia, because we used unique names, so there is only 1. So 1 is Olivia, and the other 4 went in the false branch, and you can see it from here. So Olivia is right here, and then you can see also that there is no other name that contains Olivia. Now, what can we do right here is we can move the if node, and we can start seeing what happens with the switch node. Because the true node enables you to have something that it's either true or either false, while the switch node enables you to have multiple conditions inside. And let's run the example. The rule that we want to say is that if the name that we have inside here is equal to Olivia, then I want to rename the output with Oli. And otherwise, if the name right here is equal to Liam O'Connor, which was our second name, we are going to call this output Liam. And we're going to execute. What you will see right here is that the output that is Olivia actually went to Olivia. The output in Liam actually went to Liam. And here we have the output Olivia and the output Liam. Right here, we could even say, I don't know, let's drag again the name and just use the third name. And then I'm going to press execute. And you will see that now here I have that in this output right here, I have again one item, and it's called output 2 because I didn't rename it, but here I could easily rename it and press others, and you would see that unlike the previous node, here I can have multiple conditions as output, and the condition can be also something different than true or false. And that's the biggest difference with the if node. Let's now move to the merge node, but to the merge node, in order to understand it, I need to make a different example. So let me create it real quick. Okay, so in order to understand it, I just created two set fields. One where I called it input, and the input is what's up, and the other one is ciao, and etc. And now let's see what the merge node does. So before running, let's think about what's happening. I have that one input, which is this one, is maybe actually let me add a wait node right here now that I think about it, so you better understand it. I have that the workflow is connected to two different paths, and I have that these two paths needs to run together or at the same time, right? So I'm gonna press execute workflow, and I see that after a wait time, that in this case, I think it's set to 5 seconds or something like this, then the second workflow will run, and then I have two different outputs, right? The first output that I have is what's up, and the second output that I have is ciao. Now let's imagine that for whatever reason, as we mentioned before, I want to unify these two inputs and have only one output. That's when the merge node comes very, very handy, because this will enable us to have only one output and will keep them as separate in this example. Now, few things to mention. Here I could go any input that I want, so just be aware that you can change it. And then you have also the option of appending, which means exactly what we just did. So one input, then you take the other one and you append it. You have the things to combine it. And this means that basically you are combining the two into one, and you can either keep the matches or have some different type of rules that here you can play around with. Or these other two, you can write a query to do some other stuff or choose a branch. Reality is that you will most likely use mainly append and combine, and I would not lose a lot of time on the other options if I were you. Moving to the second last bundle of nodes. These are nodes that are useful for connectivity and API connections. And the first thing that we're going to use is an HTTP request. Basically, what this node allows you to do is to get a request. You have a lot of options like post, get, and whatever. If this is not clear to you what API is, you can watch the video right here, and then that should clarify for you a little bit more what this is about. However, let's imagine that we want to scrape this website, which is basically this website right here, where we have all of the information, news, and etc. about the Y Combinator. If I wanted to do that, I would have to insert the get method and paste the URL right here, and pressing execute step, then here I would be able to retrieve all of the HTML from the website that I'm currently extracting. And now here, as you know, you have a lot of options. If you wanted to clean everything, you could use an HTML node, and you could extract the HTML content, and you could do so many other things. However, this is the node that you use for gathering or posting, depending on the things that you want, but to scrape things that are not native to n8n. And why is that? Because let's imagine that I want to, connect to a server or to a service that it's not part of n8n yet, right? A great example could be something like Google Gemini or some image recognition service that it's not yet integrated into n8n, and I do not have any way to access it. If I would not be able to do an HTTP request, let it be get, post, whatever, but this allows me basically to connect to something external and use those functionality without having to write that code myself because it's not inside n8n yet. The other things that we can do is webhooks. In order to explain webhooks, which basically means the possibility of also, again, connecting to some other service, and you could use it for, Voice AI agent, for 11 Labs, or for easier things, we're now going to connect to a service which is called Postman API, which allows us to send API requests and test them, and then play around a bit with the requests that we get and so on, right? What we're going to do now and how that works is the following. Here, we will need to put the URL or the text of the webhook that we created. Our webhook is this one, so we're just going to press it. This will copy it. We will go right here and we will paste it. We are sending the data from Postman to n8n, so we're going to select the post method. And we send a body, and let's go to raw. And I have already prepared this, which is my full name. So we're sending a JSON that contains the value full name and the key of it's my name. I'm going to go right here and press listen to test. And here I can send now the thing. And we're going to check. So the message is workflow has started, as you can see right here. And if I go back into n8n, I can see that I received in the body the information that I sent, right? So now we did one step, which is from one server, or service, which is Postman API. We sent the data to n8n. Now let's try to do the other part, which is, okay, now n8n received them. Now what I want to do is I want to try and send back the data to Postman saying, hey, data received. How do you do that? First of all, you connect this to a response to webhook. You are then not responding immediately, which would mean telling the service to send this, which means workflow has started because I'm responding immediately. I'm saying, hey, wait until you reach the respond to webhook node. And then we're going to open this node and we're going to respond with a text. And we're going to say, all good, job is done properly. And now I can save and I can execute the workflow. Again, this will be listening. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to send again the data. And as you can see now, the answer is all good, job is done properly. So I received exactly, and you will be able to see it here, the information that I inserted right here. So all of the data flew through, and then this was the answer that we received. Okay, great. Now back to the last things. And this is AI integration, which basically means inserting any sort of AI in our workflow and in our automation. We use ChatGPT just because it's convenient. However, this could be literally anything. So Claude, DeepSeek, Gemini, many things, right? Here we are going to press inside. And once this is connected, I chose as a model GPT 4.1 mini. And here I could write anything. So write a LinkedIn post of, 20 words about self-improvement. And if I'm now going to press execute, what it's going to do, it's n8n is talking now to ChatGPT, in this case, OpenAI service. And once the request is done, it will be processed and voila. This is the quote or post that it generated. Invest in yourself, blah, blah, blah. Now, once this is clear, we can move to the last part, which is the one that's a bit more hyped. However, it's still a very interesting one, which is the AI agents. Now, let me use actually a different trigger for this. I want to use a chat trigger because I want to be able to chat with it, because I want to be able to show you exactly how you would be able to build it. And now you build the chat, you connect the chat to the agent, and then now you know that you can connect a brain and then a memory. If you don't know about AI agent, there is a very nice 18 minutes video that I made. I will position it right here, where I walk you through everything from zero to fully built AI agent, and I suggest you to go there and check it. And as you might know already, you can connect like Gmail tools, or you could be connecting, I don't know what else, and a sheet tool to connect it there, or last one that I could be connecting, I don't know, a calendar. Those are the general one, and etc. And what you are going to be able to do now is to create actually a personalized assistant, right? So I am going to press execute, open chat, sorry. And in here, I am going to say, hello, how are you, sir? And I'm going to press, and as you can see, now the chat has started. The AI agent went into ChatGPT and then answered, hello, I'm doing well. Thank you. How can I assist you today? And then it created the memory. And then here you would be able to prompt it and say, okay, send an email or update the Google Sheet or get me the data and so on and so forth. And this is great because unlike the previous things where you just chat with an LLM, here you have the possibility of having tools, which means that we are giving now n8n and therefore the AI agent the possibility of doing tasks in your behalf. And this is absolutely great because then this can become super easily a personal assistant that you can just prompt. Here it's a chat, but you could, connect it to Telegram and then you could phone call it and so on. And this could become something that improves your life on the day-to-day. All right, so now if you want the blueprint to see how I map the node and play around yourself, you can find the first link down below. It will lead you to my free Skool community. You are going to go to classrooms and then tutorials. And in here, you will find a video inside the n8n section, which will be a page called, 15 nodes to master n8n. And you can go right here and download the blueprint and you can import it into your n8n. And don't worry, if you don't know how to do that, you can simply go right here in the welcome section and I show you step by step how to do that. The only catch though is that not everyone gets in, so please take some time to answer the question in the beginning of the form. With that aside, I really hope you found value in this video and I'll see you in the next one.